Howdy Partners, and welcome to another episode of the Howdy Partners podcast, where we give you tactical insights so that you can perform in your role better. Today, we are joined with someone who has been on both sides of the big fish and the small fish type interaction, and we're going to be diving into that topic exactly. Before we dive in, though, Ben, how's it going? It's been a bit since you and I chatted. How are you been?
Been all right, yeah, not bad. I think busy as always, mate. Salt Lake is cold already. We've already got some snow in the mountains, which is interesting. So definitely got the heating on, trying to keep warm. But apart from that, mate, no complaints on my end.
Nice. Yeah, it's no snow for me yet, so you beat me to it, but it is getting colder. And I keep thinking, where am I going to leave to? Because I don't want the cold, dark winter anymore. I have too many sun lamps in my home. And I need that vitamin D. So, well, today we're joined with Juraj. And Juraj, you've worked, like I mentioned, on both sides of the big fish and the small fish in the interaction of partnerships. Tell us about your experience in partnerships, where you've worked, and the kind of interactions that you've been in, and then we'll kick off the topic.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. For quick intro, I spent about past 8 years helping companies like Slido, Cisco, and most recently OnDeck scale and grow through this notion of product-led partnerships. I joined Slido as one of the early hires back in 2016. Slido is a audience interaction platform doing Q&A, polling for events and virtual stuff. I had no idea what partnerships is at that point, and that it's going to be my role for years to come. But spent about 6-7 years there, building our partnership org from scratch and sort of moving through the changes as we were focusing on different products and different strategy. And then also spent a part of the journey also as head of product. So really in Flynn's case, the product and partnership boards are really, really closely integrated. We got acquired by Cisco back in 2021, after which I joined WebEx's partnerships team and collaboration business unit team to help them sort of merge the two worlds of product and partnership, but also launch their new platform, which was sort of playing a bit of a catch-up game with Zoom and Microsoft Teams at that point, and everyone who was doing it, extending their video conferencing platform to third-party developers. But that's what we're doing there. And yeah, most recently, I actually took a bit of a break from work, became a father, so getting used to that new role, and just mostly spending my time on currently doing more fractional work and part-time projects, both in partnerships, what I'd say.
Very cool. I feel like there's so many threads to go down there. One with partnering to then acquisition, and then also you being in a product role as well, which is really interesting. And then of course, becoming a father. Congrats. That's something I'm looking forward to. But let's dive into the interaction that led to that acquisition. I would love to better understand how you as an organization engaged with this bigger fish. And, was that acquisition planned? What did you focus on that from the start? Was that the end goal, or did it just run through such a good partnership that their team said this calls for an acquisition? Tell me more about that interaction, and how you may have been intentional about navigating to that point.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't planned for us. Slido was a bootstrap business from the beginning, so in a unique situation in a way there. We weren't planning to raise until about that point around 2020, 2021. We were thinking two paths. One is either to raise or to partner with someone, strategic partner, to sort of think through what the next chapter of growth would look like. It was very open though, and I think it was sort of opportunity meets luck situation where we met and connected with. At that point, it was Juraj Patel, who recently joined WebEx from Box as well. Great leader and from before because Box was a customer. I think we connected and we're both really aligned on what the vision is for WebEx and Slido in this new era of virtual and remote and hybrid work. So to check the box, but it was still a big transformation for our team. Like the culture and the people at Slido, they didn't join Slido to work for a big corporation. They joined a bootstrap startup. So there's a lot of sort of change management there, as there is with acquisitions in general, but it was a bit of a surprise to most of the team. But I think it made sense in terms of partnership. And I think it comes to sort of the wider strategy that we had with partnerships. We as a startup, we started investing into partnership pretty early on. And it was very much like representative of the organization. I reported to our CEO and met with other members of the exec team. So partnerships were always have the voice internally. But we also had to be super picky in terms of who are the strategic partners and what are we doing with them also in terms of product. So couldn't really do many things at once. It was all about saying no to more things than saying yes.
So I've noticed that a lot of organizations try to partner with these big companies, and then they get lost in either an old process or just a convoluted process. What do you think the perspective should be for organizations when looking at these strategic partnerships with these bigger fish? What is that thought process, and what did your team do to really dig in and make that partnership successful?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm a big fan here of working backwards. I think that was the case here. It was very clear to us where we are going as a company and as a product, and especially as we're navigating sort of COVID as well, with events changing and our focus refocusing. Our product strategy was changing as well, but it was clear that if we were working backwards from, hey, Slido needs to grow in this space of internal comms and empower everyone who's using whatever video conferencing and whatever presentation software to be there and to seamlessly use Slido within that context. It's sort of becoming easier to know, okay, well, to do that, we need to partner on that front, partner on another front. It wasn't a case of let's partner everyone and let's go to that conversation with more of we're a platform and we can partner with any app and other app that says so. I don't think that every product or company is or should be a platform. And it wasn't the case for us. It's different in WebEx, different for our companies. But for us, there are two pillars. One was, as I mentioned, there was the presentation software piece and the other one, video conferencing. Like those two groups are key parts of the workflow of our customers. And we've done lots of user research on this and lots of surveys on like what is in your workflow and our customers' workflow, what tool are they using and where does Slido enter that. So it was easy that in those two pillars, we need to invest into partnerships and through strategic partnerships. So that's where we sort of get into a conversation of working with Google's, Microsoft's, not the WebExes of the world, but it wasn't sort of saying, oh, hey, Google's logo is cool. Let's work with them. Let's find a way. It was working backwards from a product strategy and product roadmap for years to come.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting points that you mentioned there, which I found really, really interesting. And I'd love to double down on. The first was, I think I described it before as a buying river, so to speak. So like what's upstream from you, what's downstream from you, and then actually figuring out, okay, who are the people that are going to generate revenue, right, for us that are further upstream, and then who are we going to deliver value to, which are the people like further downstream. And so I'd love to understand how you went through that planning exercise with your internal teams. What were some of the things that you took into account? How did you really build out that kind of strategic view to figure out like which people to go after?
Yeah. So the first question that we asked there is sort of the topic of working backgrounds is what does the end look like? For us at that point, it was sitting within IT. So a few years in, we had some initial product market fit, but not originally our product market fit was in the conferences world. So events like South by Southwest, Web Summit are using Slido for their events. But that's how we got that initial product market fit, but it wasn't where we would add in terms of the product strategy. So we were about 120 people at that point, and we were thinking through our go-to-market strategy for essentially launching a new business line, new business segment, targeting individual presenters at companies. So really leaving the external event space. From a product perspective, for us to be able to go after this market, we needed to make sure that Slido can be seamlessly used with Google Slides, PowerPoint, and other presentation software tools. So already there, you can kind of sense that we need some sort of global partnership or product integration with those big players. And that's where we sort of enter the first partner, which is Google for us at that stage. It was working backwards from this product strategy. And then the second piece for me is how do we fit in? So coming to the conclusion of like, hey, we need to build a really cool product with Google, which is probably a bit more than just looking at their documentation and building a Chrome extension. Like how this is more of a strategic partnership and want to be closer to their product team. How do we fit in is about talking to Google and whoever the partner is, and kind of vulnerably asking and figure out where are they heading, and do we fit into that in the next 6 months or a year? Because if we don't, it's got to be a forced relationship where we're never going to get anywhere, and then you sort of get into that whole notion of we're just a little fish and Google does whatever they want to do. We're not to stay with the metaphors of an ocean, but it's just like a big wave that crashes you, basically. So that was a second key component. I'm not a big fan of like mental models and frameworks. Well, I am in a way, but I think most of the time they're sort of done retrospectively, and I want to put this out and say, hey, follow this and you'll be golden. I think this is our learning that happened afterwards in the process.
Cool. The other thing, like, and again, well, I know we're going to get on some additional questions, but I think fundamentally, I've been in your position as well, where we partnered with Insight, like a, massive, they've got inside sales teams, they've got thousands of people that you're trying to get in front of. And I think fundamentally that is the hardest part as a smaller player, is how do you gain attention of their field teams, of their sellers? How do you make them understand our value proposition and get it in front of as many customers as possible? Did you have any kind of strategies or techniques to reach more of those people at the larger partner? Because for me, it was like pounding the pavement, to be honest. It was like, I had to just put in the work. I had to, network on LinkedIn, reach out. Was that your approach, or did you do anything a bit more scalable?
Pretty much. And I think one maybe tactical advice there that I would say is, and this is similar to how I think about, recurring revenue comes from recurring impact within our organization and how we partner cross-functionally. I look at it similarly here, where it's not only about building that relationship with the partner manager or someone on product partnership side. On like, we need to build this integration, and that's it. It's can be a year or 2 years in our case with some of these larger partners, building relationships across the whole customer chain and across the whole experience. Like maybe, and also on our end, maybe it was the point of inviting them to speak at our customer meetup, like completely unrelated, would seem like, but all those little touch points across the customer journey were actually super helpful in one, building trust and the relationship, which is, I think we will all agree that it's a big piece of such a transaction, but also embedding them into our customers' world, into our product world, and sort of getting them warmer in a way.
So what do you think was maybe an error that you made in that interaction? And I imagine a lot of organizations make the same error, but what's an error that you made that you're, when reflecting, thinking, could have done this better? Or, you mentioned that you do fractional work and some advisory. What do you see in organizations that is a common challenge, and what is a potential resolution from what you've experienced?
I think a big one, which maybe is obvious, but not always, is especially in this relationship when you have bigger partner, a smaller startup or a smaller company, is just doing the partnership for the sake of a cool looking logo or a cool sounding company. And that can be true. And we've done it ourselves. I remember one of our first product partnerships, what was with Slack, at a point where they're just launching their platform, and everyone was talking about it, how they can extend the product and build bots and apps. And it was truly an exciting time and an exciting brand. We even had some customers who requested that integration, and so it seemed like an obvious thing to do, and it made sense in so many levels. But ultimately, and it took us way longer than it should have had, almost 2 years, but we sunset the whole integration, not the whole relationship, but it just didn't really go anywhere. The adoption showed us clearly that this isn't hitting any actual need of our customers. It's more of a nice to have. So it happened to us and it happened after as well. But I would say this is the biggest one. And hopefully some of those questions that you can be asking, like, how does this fit into our long-term strategy and roadmap? And how do we fit into the roadmap of the partner? Those can hopefully help with sort of not investing into something just because it's a cool sounding thing. And of course, brand is a big thing, especially if you're a small startup. So maybe some deals make sense just for the only reason that is sort of strengthening the credibility of your brand because you're partnered with someone bigger.
Yeah, I love it. I think we might have lost Will, but we can forge on. I can't see him in the window anymore. So I'll mark this, and he's obviously struggling with his internet today. So obviously we talked about like one of the things that one of the challenges you faced, so to speak. And I think you kind of started off the episode by explaining like you had a very clear goal in mind as a company, which was like, okay, we're at this stage. Do we go and raise funding, or do we go out, get a strategic partnership and then potentially line yourself up for acquisition, which is wonderful. What do you think for like a smaller company now? Should a smaller company think, hey, we want to become the Google, the Cisco, like these big super nodes? Or is it fine being a smaller part of that ecosystem and just leveraging all the individual parts, if that makes sense? Like, do you think some companies try to get too big too quickly instead of leveraging the ecosystems around them, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an interesting point, and it sort of brings me to think about platforms and I touched on this previously. I'm actually I quite like the Bill Gates definition of a platform that I think was in one of the strategy articles a while back. It really talks about that the platform happens when the value of everybody that uses it exceeds the value of the company that created it or that built it. And you have great examples of that, like Shopify, where their partner revenue is greater than their own revenue. But that's not gonna be feasible, or shouldn't be for every company out there. So I think it's actually, to me, pretty reasonable strategy to stay smaller and actually not become that big fish, but still think through how can you grow through a ecosystem like Notion? How can you be part of that ecosystem, play an active role, and actually have that fuel some of your growth? So I think the opposite of just staying sort of closed down is not a strategy that I would pursue, especially in this day and age. Customers, there's so many, especially in B2B sales, there's so many tools out there, and your typical customer will use many of those tools in their workflow. So you got to have some sort of role and seat at the table as far as your customer's workflow goes.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I always think about some of the most impactful things you can do, especially if you are partnering with a larger ecosystem partner, which is like just do some co-marketing, right? Like there's so much value to doing these kind of smaller activities, not trying to get too technical with the partnership motion. Like do a few co-marketing activities, hit up their audience, and you'll probably find a significant amount of impact through just those kind of small, small tactical steps, rather than trying to get too big too quickly, so to speak. So yeah, I think I kind of like to move on to maybe the next question around like, what was the most valuable lesson you learned? If you had to think of like one thing, big fish, small fish dynamic, what was the kind of most valuable thing that you think you've learned through that journey, and how has it kind of set you up for success, do you think, in future partnership roles as well?
Well, one is definitely to not force it. And I touched on this before, but it doesn't always make sense. I mean, and it doesn't mean that every company should partner with like big fish or a bigger partner in their space. It makes sense for some. I think it's also very closely tied decision to a product and how you're building product. For us, Slido, as I mentioned, it was super close to two worlds, and we wouldn't be able to grow without investing heavily into the product integrations. Because Slido is the type of product we're not gonna catch all the use cases. We're not gonna build like a big platform type product, but we're gonna rely on sort of connecting the workflows with other partners. So not forcing with a big partner is one for sure, and also. Another one which is separate to this is thinking through adoption, especially as for a partnerships goes. I think it's fairly easy to like get developers interested and drop that interest and get them building on your platform or with your APIs, and they'll launch apps, they'll launch integrations and whatnot. But if you're not thinking through the adoption, and this goes both ways: one, to platform or the marketplace, but two, also for us at Slido, where we were the little fish on some of these big ecosystem marketplaces, is thinking through adoption, and that again that goes beyond partnership, goes beyond product, touches the whole customer journey. But if the users are actually not using the product, then it's not going to go anywhere.
Love it. We'll be back. Go ahead, Meet.
All right. So we always leave our audience with one tactical tip from your experience that we've talked about today. And again, those that you advise and the fractional work that you're doing, what is the one daily or weekly practice that you would say helped you be successful or is helping your companies that you're advising be successful today? What is that thing as it pertains to the big fish and small fish interaction to move the needle what can people do, right when they're done listening to this episode?
I think on the topic of sort of talked a lot about how do we fit in and doing that check-in with the big partner, something that we've done on a weekly and monthly basis, sort of varying scale and how in depth we went, was me or us, the small fish, driving a sort of structured, almost like an investor update, but in the sense of the partnership or the company, and sending that and driving that to a partner. Also, even early in the days, even before we would say agree on something, even if nothing major happened, but through being there in their inbox or wherever in those regular moments, I think it was really important. And it goes sort of matches nicely with me saying of like embedding them into the whole customer journey, and also us internally, like, are we doing an event? Okay, let's invite them. Even before we have a relationship, even before we build something, it's just gotta build the trust. So doing that check-in, and that didn't really come natural to me, because it feels like, why am I asking Google what are they gonna be working on and building in the next 6 months? Like, what am I? But it actually pays off, and it's worth doing, and being a bit more vulnerable in that sense. So I would invest into doing that way before you think you're ready.
Amazing. That what I like about that is it shows, just how intentional you are about the relationship and about the strategic partnership that you're either, trying to develop or have developed. And then also it almost to a certain degree allows you to take lead a little bit, because the bigger fish probably isn't going to take lead unless if they truly see a massive opportunity with you as the smaller fish, which I would say is less likely to happen. And so if you're able to take lead, then you have a bit more control and you have more influence at that point. And like you said, you're a bit more vulnerable. And so you get to kind of like show your cards, but then keep that constant communication, stay top of mind. So I really enjoy that tip, and just how serious and intentional it is as well to just constantly say, yes, we're doubling down on this. We want to be a part of your ecosystem. We want to be a partner. That is a great tip. Juraj, thank you so much for coming on the Howdy Partners podcast. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with, or is there any place that the audience can find you or what you're talking about these days?
Thanks for having me first. And happy to connect with anyone. If I can help with any way, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. Juraj Pal, or I have like a very stupid simple landing page now, my personal lastname.com. So all goes there.
Well, might as well plug it, and they'll get, at least one person will get value. And of course, the audience listening today got value as well. Thank you so much for being on, and thank you all for listening. That was another episode of the Howdy Partners podcast.